Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another E3 2018 special. I'm your host, MrBooMStickXL, and this is Boom's Pop-Up Podcast. It has been a crazy E3, lots to talk about, but today we're going to be focusing on what happened last night at Sony's conference. And of course, in order to do that, I need to have great guests. And of course, I have one today. He's known throughout the Twitter community as Rage Virus X. I did his community spotlight a couple of months ago. He's a very interesting person, very, very knowledgeable with gaming, and has his ear to the floor with everything that's going on at E3. Good morning, Rage. How you feeling, brother? Thank you so much for hanging out.
Oh, thanks for having me on the show, man. I'm very excited to be here and recap on what happened with Sony's conference last night. Definitely was an interesting one to say the least, but there's lots of good things to show, and I'm excited to be talking about it.
Yo, for sure. There absolutely no doubt about it. I mean, it started off, let's say, a little strange, but we're gonna get into it. We're gonna get into it because, listen, I said this to you pre-game. I don't care what flag you fly, whether it's blue, whether it's red for Nintendo Switch, or it's an emerald green for the Xbox. It is no better time to be a gamer. And at the end of the day, regardless of what piece of plastic some people worship, you have to just push that aside and enjoy the fact that we are gamers at heart. We are human beings, right? We have to remember that, okay? Because some of the things I've seen on Twitter in the last 24 hours have really diminished my affection for some people on Twitter because, man, some of the things I have read have been frightening. Almost
take it way too seriously.
Yes, almost reporting to the police worthy because it's just a piece of plastic, folks.
Yeah.
So let's you know what? Let's rip the band-aid right off, Rage, and go right into the E3, Sony's E3 2018 conference. I'm going to start with you. You're the guest. You turn on your TV, you're watching it. What were you privy to?
Oh boy. Well, I was expecting a little bit more of a spectacle, I guess, being Sony and E3 and everything like that. It's a big time of year. They're a big player in the gaming industry. You think they come out right off the bat and just kind of slam you with all the upcoming Sony goodies, but they really took a step back this year and was very more chilled out and relaxed. I know they said they're going to be doing a deep dive on their four big games coming out, that sort of thing. And it was really good to see them. I think Sean Layden ranted a little bit too much in the beginning. He should have just been a little bit straight to the point. Okay, let's get to it. We don't have a lot of time because of the whole herding people from one location to the other. The setting was cool that they built it on this whole LA stage thing, but I think they would have been better off if they had a little bit larger crowd in a singular place, and not just that, but maybe had the live performances kind of like how they did with God of War and The Last of Us sort of thing. They did this same time around. Of course, there's a banjo guy before The Last of Us 2.
Yes,
that was interesting. And
he played well. I mean, there's no doubt about it. He knew his craft, but I don't know if you start off your E3 2018 with a banjo player. I'm just saying.
Yeah. I mean, it kind of set the mood and everything like that. And it was nice to see a little bit more of Last of Us 2. Not just that, but actually get to see what the game could be like gameplay-wise. It looks phenomenal. Looks great. Looks dark, deep, gritty, nasty, brutal, true to the heart. Like, looks like potentially rip out your emotions, so to speak. But at the same time, I feel like they could have probably presented it a little bit better off. But that's kind of my opinion on how it started. And then it got a little bit better through, but I don't know. Overall, to me, it fell a little short.
Well, you know what? What we're going to do is we're going to break down in order. Because you know what, I liked, when I do these shows, I respect the listener in a way that maybe some other podcasters don't. Your time is valuable, and the fact that you've come out to listen today, today's show is a really big deal for me. And just in case you were working late, or you were watching your kids, or you just had a tough day at work and you went to sleep early, maybe you missed everything. So
Yeah.
what we're going to do is we're going to break it down from beginning to end. We're going to talk about each particular title. And then at the end of the show, we're going to give it a grade. And we're going to go right into exactly what we were talking about a minute ago, The Last of Us 2. I'm going to tell you this right now. It is a day one purchase for me. It
Agreed.
looked, let's see, with me, I love what Sony, their angle of development. I like that gritty, dark, adult themed, action oriented, open world type of game that
Me too.
they just do so perfectly, and they have done perfectly since the start of this generation with Horizon Zero Dawn. I thought everything that moving forward has been nothing short of phenomenal. Last night, the presentation, even though it being in a made up church and a banjo player and all that other stuff, it still for me did not diminish the fact of what we were seeing. The masterpiece of what could be a game of the year contender whenever it comes out in front of us. I mean, and I'm going to say this, and tell me, Rage, if you agree with me. Did it not kind of have that Tomb Raider-esque feel to it?
You think so?
I do. I think it had a very Tomb Raider or Lara Croft feel for the, when she was making the bomb at the end of the bow when they were in that storefront.
I didn't, I didn't really think about that, but now that you bring it up, I can see like a very young version of Lara Croft and Ellie. Like if you were to somehow try to compare the two series, yeah, definitely can see like a very young version of Lara Croft and Ellie, and that, yeah, actually, I can see it.
A lot of people didn't get that, which is, I'm surprised, but that's exactly what I thought of when I saw her kind of sneaking around and, going up behind people and shooting the bow and arrow. I got real. I mean, again, I love what they've done with the new Tomb Raider. And obviously, this is not Tomb Raider. This is The Last of Us 2. But that's the kind of vibe I got. So,
Yeah.
well, I mean, what were your takeaways from everything from the the CG where they're talking, they're dancing, and then it goes right into action and goes back and forth? How did you think about that direction that they took it?
That was an interesting way to do it, because in the past they've mostly been heavy, just almost pure cinematic trailers. Not usually a lot of gameplay. Kind of, in the past years you'd see maybe a little bit, or kind of like gameplay, like a cinematic sort of thing.
Right.
This time around, I like how they went from a little bit of cinematics, getting a little bit into the story, and then transitioning into gameplay to continue the story on, but not just that, but to display what the game is too, or what it's going to actually end up being like. I was really impressed overall with the graphical design, the fidelity, the way that the textures were, and the setting itself. Was really impressive. They really upped their game from the original one, The Last of Us. Not just
for sure.
The Last of Us Remastered.
The leaps and bounds better. Leaps and bounds.
Yeah, it's, and like they even talked about that last year, where they're constantly working on the graphics engine and making it better. Like if they can make the rain look as good and as realistic as possible, they're trying.
Yeah.
And I like that. I want to see that. I want to see that not just from like Naughty Dog. I want to see it from all studios, though, because when you get games like this, Last of Us 2, Ghost of Tsushima, Death Stranding, God of War, you can only expect that other studios are going to look at these games and say, hey, how can we match that? But how can we make what they did maybe a little bit better in our own image, too?
Sure.
So I'm really looking forward to seeing how these new games from Sony are going to impact studios in the future.
Oh, absolutely. And you know what? Some of the best art comes from, not so much copying, but taking a piece of something that you found to be awesome and then turning it into your own. And
yes.
I think that's where you're going with, and that I would love to see that. In fact, again, we talked a little bit pre-game. I would love to see this kind of style. I'm not saying it has to be for everything, but I'd love to see this style work its way into some Xbox games.
Yes. Oh yeah.
Where they, it's again, no one is expecting Microsoft to become Sony. Each company has their own thing, and I actually respect that. But I would love to see this type of artistic view work its way into something big. That maybe it wouldn't work for Halo, maybe it wouldn't work for Gears. I got it, but maybe it would work for, let's say, Perfect Dark reboot. Maybe it would work for a possible Fable reboot. Who's to say?
Yeah, actually, I definitely think if we were to speculate a little bit, Gears of War. I've always had an idea where during the Emulsion Wars, if they were to make a dark, gritty, deep game, go straight back to the Emulsion Wars where the Locust first emerged from the planet and started attacking humans. I would love to see a dark survival-esque Gears of War game that's first person or third person, but not a cover shooter, kind of like almost how the Gears 5 direction is going, but give it almost like The Last of Us sort of kind of feel, story-wise, not gameplay-wise, but story-wise. And I think that could potentially work out as a good IP, but that's just pure speculation. There's lots of things that any studio can do to learn from these games and adapt to make it in their own image and to make themselves stand out in their own way. But
yeah, absolutely. Well, listen, we've said our piece. We both think it's a phenomenal looking game. I think that everybody in the chat probably would agree. Last of Us isn't for everyone. I get it, but it is for me. And I really cannot wait to sink my teeth into that game. Literally, I have so many questions. Again, I am gonna close out this part of this particular topic with the Last of Us 2. I was disappointed that we did not get any kind of release window or date.
I was shocked that there was not even a 2019, 2020 label on either The Last of Us 2 or Ghost of Tsushima or Death Stranding. I mean, yeah, we know Spider-Man's coming out really soon. I'm still surprised they showcased that because Eurogamer really did a good job. But yeah, I don't get it. Yeah.
You know what? I don't have an answer either, but I'm going to say this. I am surprised just as much as you are, simply because Phil Druckmann said in December of 2017, and not Phil. It's just what's Druckmann's first name? Neil. Jesus Christmas. Thank you, dude. Neil Druckmann said in December that they were 60% done with the game. Those are his words. I'm not making this up. This was an interview that he had.
That was December 2017.
Yes, that is correct. Okay. So now we're in June of 2018, which is, I'm not a mathematician, but that's 6 months. You would think there was some real speculation that they were going to drop a megaton bomb and say, okay, it's available this November. And of course, I would have fallen over in my chair, and you would have had to call the paramedics, because that would have been awesome.
Yeah, I think it really depends on when their development cycle started, though. Like, he said they were 60% done in December. What if it's 20% theoretically? Not saying it is theoretically per year sort of thing, right? So maybe it might be another 20% completed by the time PSX hits. Maybe by the time 2019 or 2020 PSX hits, we might see the game released or have a release date. You don't know. But later on this year, we still got certain events, like we have Gamescom and PSX and some PAX events too, but they might focus on either Gamescom or PSX this year if they are going to announce a release date. If they do,
that makes sense. That makes sense.
Inclination to think that they'll announce it at Gamescom instead of PSX, because it'll give them enough time for pre-orders, that sort of thing, and to get the hype up and marketing.
Yeah.
I don't think they'll drop a Bethesda and be like, it's available now or next week or in a couple months sort of thing. It's like it's going to happen. You're going to have 6 months time frame because they're going to try and sell it as much as possible.
Well, you know what? That is the thing that is really the head scratcher, if you will. When would be the perfect time outside of E3 to say,
No one knows anymore at this point, man. E3 just kind of threw a wrench into everything with all these other people. The fall is just getting jam-packed. Spring is getting jam-packed. For gamers everywhere, we're in a damn good situation for game content.
Oh, listen, if you support multiple consoles, dude, like I said in my tweet, start saving your pennies now. Go to the couch, shake it out. You know,
flip over that couch and shake it out, man.
Yes,
every penny you can
absolutely, man. We're gonna move up to the next thing that popped up, and I just thought it was we've seen it already. I'm not impressed. I'm not getting it. And of course, I'm referring to Call of Duty Black Ops 4. The minute the reveal came out that there was no single player, it was immediately for me scratched off the list. I don't play a Call of Duty for multiplayer. I have played Call of Duty multiplayer. I'm not a big fan of it. It's not that there's anything wrong with it. It's just not my speed. The game that I would play multiplayer would be, let's say, Titanfall 3. That I would be playing, but not so much Call of Duty. So I didn't really pay much attention to it. I thought the trailer was very short, considering they have the marketing rights and it's supposed to be such a big deal. What were your takes on the Call of Duty trailer?
It wasn't needed in this Sony showcase.
Yes, I agree.
It wasn't. It's just marketing rights. Like, I understand Xbox does it with a whole bunch of games, but it's Call of Duty Black Ops 4. I know a lot of people are upset that it went pure multiplayer, but honestly, from a business standpoint and the way that the Call of Duty series has been going these past 5 to 10 years, it's been going from a single player experience with multiplayer to being heavily focused on just pure multiplayer. And now they're cutting down single player because, unfortunately, most gamers now who play Call of Duty only play it just for the multiplayer.
Yes.
So financially, it's way more viable for them to cut out a single player experience and add like maybe missions or something like that as like a sort of a makeup for the single player experience without having a campaign, and focusing more on just a multiplayer side, which to them brings them more money because that's what a lot of esports are. I don't, like I said earlier, I don't like how they brought it up in the Sony conference because it wasn't needed. It's just a trailer. But you can also say the same thing about all the Xbox things too. So it's kind of tit for tat in that same situation. But at the same time, they could have used the spot for something better.
Oh, there's no doubt about it. I mean, considering their press conference was just an hour, that those 5 or 7 minutes could have definitely been used for something else. Considering we know they have the marketing rights. It's a done deal. We know that. And they really didn't show anything that we didn't already see in the reveal.
Yeah, and it was mostly just a filler too for the time gap in between where they're going from the first building to the next one, where they could continue the showcase with Ghost of Tsushima.
Right, and we'll get into that we'll get into that in a bit of a yeah. Okay, so so now this is where the conference takes a little bit of a weird turn.
A little bit.
The thing is this. I'm in show business per se because I have a show. I run several different shows, and you're on several podcasts yourself. So you can consider, I guess you can consider us having some sort of a bit of a pedigree when it comes to doing these things live. And if I were to come on my show, let's just say, and talk about, it seem very scripted or be, not in sync with the other people I'm talking to, it would ruin the flow of the show.
I'm turning it off. I'm not gonna.
Right, I'm not gonna watch. You're gonna move away. You're like, well, you know what?
Someone else is gonna have my attention. I'm not gonna sit around and wait and like, what's going on? Oh, this is boring as all hell. See ya. I'm out.
Right. So they move on to a desk format, and Sean Layton's there, who he speaks very well. You know what? Yeah, everyone breaks his balls because he wears tight shirts. I get the joke. I get he was dressed more proper last night. But the two guys on the left-hand side of him, they sounded like robots. Right? They seemed a little unprepared. And they're professionals. Like if I stutter when I'm saying something, I'm a very small channel, and I just started, right? So I'm not saying it's an excuse. I will of course get better, but those are paid professionals. I'm not paid for anything. This is completely done out of the love for the hobby. So if I make a boo
Yeah.
boo, well, you know what? I'll learn from my mistakes, and I'll keep it going. But at the same time, no one's writing me a check the minute we're done with the show, right?
Mhm.
So those two knuckleheads seemed extremely unprepared. They were kind of talking over each other at times, which I thought was very unprofessional. And I thought that was like a 5-car pileup when when they got to that desk format. What's your take on it, dude?
I didn't like it either. Um, it seemed almost like I bringing up on how like the guys were talking and acting on the show and everything like that. Maybe they were probably a little bit nervous, sort of thing, because it is live. It's on this big stream. There's got tens of thousands of people watching, probably hundreds of thousands of people. Yeah, I think it's a little bit bigger than a podcast, but at the same time, like it's if you don't take it so seriously, you won't get so nervous. You won't stress yourself out
Right.
so much. Like
Yes.
that was the one
Yes.
thing I really had to keep in mind going when I started podcasting. I had to remember that just relax. You're just talking, you're hanging out, be normal, act yourself. You know, like there's no pressure. You have an audience, but at the same time, like if you're more relaxed, if you act more yourself and you're not afraid to do so, the better you're gonna come off towards people because you're way more open and you're exposing who you are to your audience, right? You're getting their attention and they're understanding you a little bit more for who you are. So it that helps the
Yes.
attach rate for people to
Absolutely, for
keep
sure.
watching.
Well, I mean, it's supposed to be. At the end of the day, this is gaming is supposed to be fun,
Yeah.
right? I mean, if you're gonna listen, I do get this a lot with the media. If sometimes, and I read a lot of articles. I mean, I read a lot of articles. I don't read the paper because the world is a horrible place, and there's always death, and there's always some sort of nonsense going on. I'm not
Yeah.
putting my head in the ground, but I want to read something fun, so I like reading gaming related articles. And a lot of these journalists that I read from the Kotakus and from the Polygons and from the IGNs, they're very young. You can tell in their writing that they're very young.
You don't know.
Um,
I don't know how they got some of their jobs. Like,
but
I'm
this is
sorry,
this
but like,
yeah, but
it's
this
so
is where I'm
bad.
going. This is what I'm going at, dude. I mean, when you read their material, and you some of these so-called, and I use so-called in air quotes here, folks, um, went to journalism school to actually do journalism, meaning like they want to report on the news, they want to go to war-torn cities and report. That's usually their aspirations, and they obviously have to pay for school somehow, so they take a job in anywhere they can get it. And the gaming industry has a lot of room for writers, and they
Yes.
get into it, and they go to these E3s and these games comms and all these different conferences, and even though they've played games, they're not a gamer. And it certainly, when they're doing interviews, or when they're writing these articles, it shows. And last night, watching those two knuckleheads, you kind of got to ask yourself. I'm not saying that I don't have a cred meter stick that I carry with me, and I measure people by, well, oh, you're a real gamer. Okay, good. I could talk to you. Everyone deserves to be on the platform, but sometimes people are just not gamers, and maybe they're not into what they're doing. To me, it seemed like they were there just because it was their job to be there. I mean, am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong. I think it's starting to become a little bit more evident when people are starting to read the articles over the past couple of years, especially what for some reason seems like this year. A lot of writers seem to not really look at it from a true to heart gamer's perspective, but from a business standpoint, or from their own individual bias perspective. Now, I know there's this whole media bias controversy out there, so I gotta just throw this out there. This is the way I've always thought about it: is the branches themselves, maybe not as a whole, they're not biased. As individual writers, you cannot deny that there are people out there writing for these big publications for the gaming industry that do have biased views because
Yes.
that's just what their preferred platform is, especially if it comes from a casual gamer who, if they're looking for an internship and they know a little about gaming and they end up writing good pieces just because they know just enough to get it out and get them that job, they then think, oh, I'm a gamer. I know
Right.
exactly what I'm talking about. I've only been
Yes.
playing games for maybe 3-4 years at all, but now I feel like I've been doing it my whole life, and now I can write about it and feel like I have the backing, like I have that long list of pedigree, which unfortunately they don't.
Correct.
So it's been turning. It's easier to turn to a lot of the smaller venues, a lot of the smaller sites, podcasts, and stuff like that, who have a true heart for gaming, who have been gaming for like almost their whole lives, or have been gaming their whole lives, who have been gaming for years and years and years, and have been watching these events for years, have been going to them, have been doing all the things that these other writers haven't been doing.
Correct. Yes. Well, I've read a lot of your stuff. Like I said, I was very fortunate enough to have the privilege of doing your community spotlight, which is something I really enjoy doing because I really get a chance to know the person that like I'm talking to. Like we've never personally met, but being I know about your history, I kind
Mm-hmm.
of feel like I know you.
Yeah.
You know, and
And that's what I want to get across too. That's what I think writers should try and get across as well, is don't, it's good to be professional, but I think you don't have to be 100% professional in the gaming industry. Definitely in like newspaper and like real world events, that sort of thing. But I think with the gaming industry, you get more attention when you show how much you're excited about what you're talking about and not
yes,
doing it from a
yes,
critical standpoint. When you're doing a deep dive into something like that for an article, like, okay, it's good to be critical, but don't be overly negative. Balance it out with some positive. You got to really kind of look out as to what you're writing and how you're seeing things, because certain ways, certain things come off to different people as certain things, right? So
for
you really
sure,
got to be careful.
absolutely. Well, listen, we're gonna move away from that train wreck. The fire department's there. Everyone's been taken to the hospital. No
Get
one
to the
died. We're
hat.
good. We're good. Everyone, take a deep breath, and we're gonna get back into because now this is where the show really starts to pick up. This is the part of the show that makes me appreciate what Sony was trying to do. But at the end of the
Mm-hmm.
day, it's all about games, right? That's
Yes.
that's what we've come to this podcast to listen about. That's what we play games on our home consoles, and that's what we watch everyone else's content because we love games. And I
Yeah.
got to tell you, the next game we're going to talk about, to me, because being an Onimusha fan, right? I'm a die-hard Onimusha fan.
Mm-hmm.
When I see this game, I'm almost jealous that it's not from Capcom. I'm going to be honest with you because, like I said, I am the biggest fan. I still have all the titles. I even have the fighter that no one even talks about. That was
Mm-hmm.
kind of like, there was like a fighting game with them where they were jumping around like Smash Brothers. Not great, but I'm a fan, so I enjoyed it. And of course, I am talking about Ghosts of Tsushima. And
Oh man.
man, you know,
It blew me away
yes,
yesterday,
you know what?
man.
I'm gonna hold off what I'm have to say because I can see that you're gushing, ready to get explode. Do your thing, brother. Talk about this game because we talked pre-game and you were excited. Go for it.
All right. Well, I guess one thing I got to throw out there to the listeners out there is I have two favorite civilizations ever since I was a kid. One of them was ancient Egypt. I have always been a huge fan, and that's why personally for me, Assassin's Creed Origins was game of the year last year. It was so good, beat out everything. But and my second one has always been feudal Japan as well. Combine that with my passion for Dark Souls, the way the game looked, I just sort of instantly fell in love. It has what looks like fantastic gameplay. The combat mechanics just look really, really intricate, but not too intricate to the point where it could throw players off or put players off from playing the game.
Right.
It honestly feels like it's a true to heart samurai ninja mix experience that a lot of people have been looking for over the years, especially me. The combat really stood out to me because, as being a Dark Souls fan, I like the Dark Souls style of combat. To me, that's been the most appealing style of gameplay out there. the way that this game displayed for the combat looks not a lot along the lines of it, but in the same general aspect of what the Dark Souls games kind of play like. So to me, that's already, you know, going down the list. Check, check, check. Yep, this game's looking good. Check, 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 check. And then when it went to the duel under the tree,
oh my
sun,
dude,
with all the leaves falling down from that maple tree.
yes,
it honestly was like you were watching a classic samurai film.
Yes,
in a
yes.
duel, and not just that, but it felt like you're playing a fighter game.
Yep, it sure did.
Fighter game that is not a fighter game. So you could tell they took a lot from different types of genres and learned about them, tweaked them, worked on them, made it their own. And
did you get this? Did you get the Seven Samurai feeling when you were watching it?
Sorta.
I mean, I got to tell you, there was a shot, and I got to go. You know, I go back and I watch these conferences multiple times. I've seen the Xbox One twice. It's because it's sensory overload. It's too much to take in. Like, you're excited, you're sitting at the edge of your seat. I have to watch Sony's again. I'm gonna watch it after this show. I really am, because for a couple of reasons. But there was a shot where the sun was in the middle of them, like the sun was setting, and you saw the reflections. And you know what? The foliage, those red leaves blowing around. Holy shit, dude! I'm talking to you and I'm getting goosebumps. I got literally goosebumps on my arms and on my legs, because
it looks so good.
Wow, another system seller for Sony. And let's talk about them. Sucker Punch. We haven't heard anything from them since the launch of the console.
Hey, talk about a change in pace for games.
Yes.
Like, going from the Second Son to Ghost. What? What?
Yeah. Yes.
Holy shit, you guys! You know what? Good job.
Let me tell you something. Tip your hat. Listen, I tip my hat to Sony so much. I should be getting tips. Okay, I'm going to be honest with you, because I give them all the credit in the world. They are where they are today because of what they did for the fans. That's the end of the story. There's no sugarcoating it. There's no fanboyisms. It is the truth is the truth. But one thing that they have said publicly, and I want to reiterate Sean Layton saying this: we give our development teams carte blanche to do the ideas that they want to do. We do not pressure them. And you know what? You saw that with Horizon Zero Dawn. Remember, all they made is Killzone. Horizon Zero Dawn, almost my game of the year that year. Fantastic game. You take God of War, hack and slash. You just let them go do their own thing, and they come back with this masterpiece.
That was so diversely different from the
unbelievable.
It was great, and not just that. Like, as you're bringing up Origins too, that it still kind of kept to the same basic format a little bit, but they changed just enough to where it's still kind of completely separate from the rest of the series, but it stands out on its own in a fantastic way.
Oh yes, absolutely. There's no doubt about it. And again, what you were saying, what a change of pace for Sucker Punch. Going from a city setting with a guy with superpowers, or a girl with superpowers because of the DLC, which was fantastic if you've never played it. And then going into ancient setting in Japan, I'm like you, that's one of my favorite settings in history. It's one of my favorite settings personally, and it's one of my favorite settings in gaming. I have a funny feeling we're gonna get this next year. Again, I'm not gonna sit here and lie to you. Some of my disappointments of Sony's show was the no release date thing, but like you said, some of the upcoming shows they may give us. Well, I mean, it's going to come out in 2019. There's just no doubt about it. But I'm going to move on to the next one. I'm going to skip over some stuff. You know, like they kept showing Dreams in the background. The fact that we didn't see a real trailer or a release date for that
didn't come until the post conference.
Yes,
when they said, "All right, we're going to show." Oh wait, we're gonna announce one new game. Wait, what? the show's over, but you're going to announce an unreleased game, which all it was a From Software little bit title with whatever images in the background, and it's a VR game. No title, no date, no nothing, just From Software VR title. What was that? Why? What was the point of that?
That game has been in development for so long. I you know, it's almost like the Crackdown situation where they just have to logistically at this point delay it until they can just delay it and just put it out and hope for the best at this point.
Yeah, like they should have shown Dreams during the press conference, because honestly, a lot of people were wanting to see it. They should have shown it. They should have shown Dreams during the conference.
They absolutely should. If you have confidence in your title, you will show it on the big stage.
They also should have done that From Software teaser in lieu of the Black Ops 4 trailer. Like, they should have switched the spots.
Absolutely.
At the end.
Yes.
And vice versa. Yeah, that should have been completely different. That post show was bad.
You know what? Listen, you know what? Again, it's one of those things. Look, you know what? The only company that really knows how to put on a post show, I think, is Nintendo. Xbox is terrible, and Sony is terrible. Nintendo has their Treehouse events, and you know, even though it's slightly awkward because you know most of the heads of Nintendo speak, Japanese only.
Mm-hmm.
There are translators, but you're watching there's usually one or two of their big wigs, and they're like, okay, we have one more thing, and they blow everyone's minds. Nintendo fans go crazy. Like prior to E3, I was watching all of these reaction videos to when they announced Splatoon. Going into Smash, and the excitement that these people were having, it gives me goosebumps thinking about it, because that's fandomship right there, and I love it. That's what gaming is all about. So now we're going to move on to what I thought was funny, and I really cannot wait to get. Okay. Let me back this up. Let me back this up, because I'm talking about Control from Remedy. Which, when I first saw it, I'm going to be honest with you, and I think that this was a standing running thing on Twitter. I was tweeting up to 1 o'clock in the morning last night with everyone, and I swear to the gaming gods, I thought that this was going to be Quantum Break 2 with a female protagonist.
Yep.
That's what. Yes. So let me pass it over to you. What were your takeaways from this?
It was heavily Quantum Break feel. That's honestly, throughout the whole trailer, I liked how it seems like it's almost like a psychological futuristic thriller. It's interesting. It's probably going to be in a day one buy for me just from what I've seen, but at the same time, it's a very, very, very heavy Quantum Break. Whether you want to admit it or not, a lot of what was shown in the trailer, I could kind of do the same thing in Quantum Break. Like, it's cool. I like it. But at the same time, it's just like, okay.
now the game looks stunning. There's no doubt about it that it looks stunning. But what I'm curious to find out is if, first of all, there's a couple of things that happened during this reveal and then right after. Immediately, the Sony fanboys and fanboys of any console ruined the community as well as the fun that you have as a gamer.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Because it becomes very vindictive and hateful, which I don't like. I don't like that. If I see it in the chat, I will address it. If I see it on my channel, I will single you out and I will address it, because I'm here to have fun. I want everyone to be comfortable, right? That's my goal as a host, to make sure that everyone is here having fun.
Yeah.
And immediately on Twitter, which I have no control over, this was put out there as if it was an exclusive to Sony. And right away, it was getting written down. People were typing it on the list. You see what we got? We got this game. We are so great. It looks beautiful, whatever. But these are also the same folks that when Quantum Break released on the Xbox One, they were pulling down their pants and dumping all over it. You know what I'm saying? So it is a bit of a double-edged sword here, folks.
Yeah, well, and not just that, but it really kind of shut out the crowd when all of a sudden, oh, it's a multiplat.
Yes,
Shit.
yeah, and then it was then the excitement went to okay, well it looks okay, I guess I'll get it. Maybe I'll get it when it's on the the PSN sale.
It's just another multiplayer. I'll just leave it for another day. It's not exclusive. It can
yeah.
stay on the Xbox. That's where all the multiplayers go.
Yeah, well, look, I'm excited. I love Remedy. I think that they are a phenomenal development house. I really would have wished, and we don't know. It could possibly happen because Phil Spencer did say that there are some more acquisitions coming. So maybe they buy Remedy.
He said whenever the opportunity presents itself at a good time for any situation, he will
Yes,
jump on it.
yes.
He
So who
said
knows?
himself. Exactly. Who knows? But like with the 5 studios that happened, the biggest one being Ninja Theory, which is absolutely astounding
Blew
and
my mind.
shocked that's still shaking everyone in the gaming community to its core because that is huge,
Yeah,
huge for Microsoft, let
yeah.
alone because they created Hellblade at half their capacity, half their funding, half their resources. But now they have full creative freedom. They had this list of demands, and Phil Spencer or Matt Booty went up to them like, okay, you want full creative freedom. You want to be out from the AAA machine. You want to have full creative rights. You want to do everything your way, the way you want it, the way you want to do it, technically, and like in any way, shape, or form. Sure, have
Go
whatever
ahead.
you want,
Go
but you know
go
what?
crazy.
Here's
That's what
more.
they need. That's what they need. Yes,
It's
absolutely.
exactly what they need, and I'm very excited for that. So I don't see an issue with the potential or possibility of Remedy eventually maybe being underneath Microsoft, but at the same time, they just did 5 studios. Might be a little bit, but
Well, I got news for
it's
you.
hard. It's hard to peg down, man. Like it's really
Yeah.
hard to peg down because there's so many things that could happen. But
Yes.
we
Well,
will.
the one thing I will say is that during several interviews, some of the Xbox brass said that Quantum Break is not dead. There's a lot of story left to tell. So that indicates that maybe after Control is released, Remedy will start working on that, and in a couple of years we'll have because they don't have to do anything. They're not creating a new engine. They're not creating a new franchise and a new story. Well, they're going to be creating a new story, obviously, but not from the ground up. So that
Mhm.
will obviously take off years of development time because they have the assets there.
Yes.
So
Yes.
who knows? But listen, we're going to move on to the next topic, and I'm going to say this: anyone that's in the chat, anyone that listens to my shows or will watch it or listen to it on a replay, I have been banging the Resident Evil 2 remake drum since it was announced, where he pulled out the shirt and said, "Yes, we do it." Right? You remember that? I watched. I still watch it. I still get goosebumps because Resident Evil 2. Again, we talked off air, and I'm going to say it again. I'm an
Yeah.
older gamer. I've been gaming for 40 years. Picked up my first controller in 1978. And with all of that gaming knowledge, with all of those systems that I brought, with all of those games, my number one game in my entire existence as a gamer has been Resident Evil 2. And
Mm.
last night, I'm going to tell you this, the only reason why I didn't go to the hospital with a heart murmur, and the only reason why I'm not that I'm not hung up somewhere getting fluids pumped into me is because it was late when I watched this, and I didn't want to wake up my wife, and I didn't want to wake up the neighbors because I would have screamed at the top of my lungs. I knew it was going to be there. I had a little bit of inside information from someone that will remain nameless that told me it was going to be there, and you know what? It was there in all of its glory, and oh my goodness.
Mhm.
I don't think I could have. You know what? I listen. Prior to going live on this, right now, I watched it 3 times just prior to going live. Okay, I think the direction that they're taking this brings us back to the horror of Resident Evil. Resident Evil 7 was terrifying. I
Yes.
loved it. But this brings you back to the real classic third person. I'm afraid to walk around the corner horror. But I want to give this to you. What was your take on the reveal of Resident Evil 2 on the Sony stage?
I wasn't surprised. I like what I saw. I'm a pretty big Resident Evil fan as well. Maybe not as big as like some other people, especially you or like my one of my good friends back home in British Columbia, he's a huge Resident Evil fan. Like as soon as he found out, he was texting me, like he was spamming my phone with text, like, oh my god, Resident Evil 2, oh my god, and like it's great to have that excitement. I think it's going to be good. I think it'll play out well. My biggest question is, with the success of Resident Evil 7, how they did that game, do you really think they're going to stick with third person?
Well, you're asking what, that it's going to be in third person or first?
That's the thing. Like, do you feel that they're actually going to stick, even though it is a remaster or anything like that? Do you really think they're going to stick with a third person strictly?
Yes.
Or do you think they might go first person strictly, or maybe like a mix of both?
No, I actually have some inside information in regards to, first of all, when this game was under development, I've been keeping my. This is one of those titles that, as a form, I really have kept my ear to the floor. I've really been digging and investigating this title because, of course, it is my favorite title. And I'm going to tell you, the reason why it took so long to finally come out was because, not that they changed the engine. It's based on the Resident Evil 7 engine, but they tried it in 3 different formats, and 2 formats failed. The first format that they were developing were the fixed camera angle, because a lot of fans, this game is mostly built on fan feedback. I know that for an absolute fact, that they took fan feedback very, very, very seriously, and they tried the fixed camera angle, and it did not work at all. It was slow, it was clunky, it didn't work. Then they tried it in first person like Resident 7, and that was an immediate fail, because it took away exactly what Resident 2 was. And that's when they went with the Resident Evil 4 over-the-shoulder kind of presentation that you saw in the actual the demo trailer.
Yeah.
So that's what kind of held it up a little bit. But it is pretty awesome if you think about it, that it's releasing in January, the same day that Resident Evil 7 launched last year. I think that is awesome. I think it's fantastic. I cannot wait to get my hands on it. I'm going to tell you this. I bought Resident Evil 7 on both consoles. I beat it 3 times on the Xbox One, twice on the PS4. Tried to play it through on VR, and after like 25 minutes realized that, you know what, I am getting older and I really want to enjoy my pension, so I'm not going to play it in VR, and I stopped because it's just too much for the senses. But I am going to say there are heavy rumors that you will be able to play this game in VR. Now, whether or not that changes the perspective, I don't know.
That would be interesting, because if they implemented VR, they would have to go into a first-person perspective. But the advantage of having VR and in first-person perspective with that game is you can still kind of have like that third-person over-the-shoulder type of scares or sort of thing going along with it, because you can still look around and, that sort of thing, and still be aware of your full surroundings. Because in the third-person over-the-shoulder sort of thing, you still have a fairly wide view of your surroundings. You have good peripherals around you. In first person, not so much, right? You're very restricted to what's directly in front of you.
Right.
With the VR sort of thing, they can maybe be a little bit more lax in that area and actually be able to have more viewable range, that sort of thing, and all that fun stuff. But it could be a viable option.
It would certainly be a reason to buy it on the PlayStation 4.
Yes,
that was, again, forget the fact whether it's going to play better on the X. They already confirmed that it's going to have X enhancements. That's confirmed.
If I can play the game normally the way it's meant to be played, with or without VR, like let's say if I'm playing the game without VR and then all of a sudden I want to switch VR and there's no there's nothing holding me back from switching back and forth between the two, sort of thing. Like the controls aren't getting confused, or that sort of stuff. It could very well be a very heavy selling feature for that game. For
no doubt about it. Listen,
I'll want to play it on PlayStation alone. I wouldn't want to play on my Xbox. I want to play just because of that VR aspect.
Yes, absolutely. Well, you know what? When you think of Resident Evil 2, or when you think about Resident Evil per se, you think of PlayStation, of course, because that's where it launched, right? We had all the Resident Evils up until 4, which was an exclusive for the GameCube. Shocker there, but again, it was you got Resident 1, 2, 3 on the original PlayStation, and then that's when Capcom started to branch out with Code Veronica releasing exclusively on the Dreamcast. Another shocking move, really blew my mind. One of my favorite games, also. But when I think of PlayStation, those are one of the pillars that made the PlayStation console the monster that it is today, and that, of course, is the Resident Evil series. So I'm really excited. So now we're going to talk about what we were talking about pre-game. It's a bit of a funny one, and we're going to talk Death Stranding. Okay, and listen, you have to say Kojima is a genius because he brought us Metal Gear, right? We don't have Metal Gear Solid, which is still in my top 10 games of all time.
See, that's where we can have different opinions on that.
Yeah, no, that's cool. I get you. I'm going to get to you in a second. So you have to consider, you have to respect what he brings to the table. But, and there's a big but here, okay? What we saw on display last night, here is the thing. Again, not to beat this horse, I've been gaming a long time. I've read a lot of books. I've played lots of games. I've read a lot of stories, watched a lot of movies. I watched that footage now 3 times. And I'm going to be completely honest. Okay, I may not have a doctrine, but I do have some intelligence. And I'm going to say that I still have no idea what the F is going on in that trailer. There was a point where it almost looked like a luggage simulator when he was walking across the gap because he was bouncing all that luggage. And I'm like, wow, this is Bellhop 2018. Okay, if that's what you're going with. But I'm going to hand it over to you, Rage. What was your take on this?
He's got a baby sidekick.
Yes.
I'm sorry, but the way he handled that canister sort of thing and was kind of like interacting with the baby and how the baby interacted with them during that one little scene where he activated it on his chest sort of thing, it honestly felt like, yeah, that's right. This baby's going to help me get out of here.
He tapped on it like a fish tank.
Yeah, like how the hell is that little baby? What? You know what? I'm starting to think that little container with the baby inside of it isn't actually human.
I don't think it is.
Because it almost seemed like it powered the equipment on its back, and it almost seemed like he couldn't do what he was trying to do when he was traversing that that kind of almost seemed like a cliffside or that beach or whatever, wherever the hell he was, those rocks, and those shadow monsters or whatever. It almost seemed like his equipment wouldn't work without that baby. That to me is a little weird, but I don't want a walking simulator. Like how we were talking before the show. I hope that's not near the start of the game, and I hope to God, because Kojima's really bad for this, as he drags out a lot of storytelling and it's a lot of cinematics too in his games.
I tried there as long as an actual film.
Yeah, I've never been a huge fan of the Metal Gear games, but I've never truly given them a try until recently, where I tried doing I tried playing Metal Gear Solid 5. I know it's probably a bad place to start in the series or whatever, but it was the most recent game. It was on Game Pass. I was like, okay, I don't have to really invest in it. I don't have to worry about it. Let's give it a try. I was not interested at all after the start. As soon as you actually start to play as Snake, after the hospital, in the desert, in the where we actually get to start playing, I was like, you know what? After all of this, I don't feel like I want to invest any time anymore into it. And I really don't want to see that with Death Stranding, because it looks good. The story potentially could be really good, even though it's stupidly confusing right now. But at the same time, I don't want that same experience to happen to me with Death Stranding as it did with Metal Gear Solid 5. But also how we mentioned earlier, the footage to me was almost rushed to put together.
Yeah,
Um,
I agree. Even the way didn't the walking seem a little
yes,
off to you?
exactly. That's kind of what we brought up earlier too, right? Was how the walking mechanics, how the character was moving, interacting, him walking over the train. You go, that does not look right. It's
Yeah,
very
it looked
uneven
like it was off.
terrain.
Definitely
Yeah,
looked like
and
it was off.
it looked very robotic. It almost looked like he was almost walking on a smooth surface, almost like how like a very pre alpha game is playing, but not just that, but also kind of like how some of the older school games play when you're walking a character. Is very robotic, and you're kind of just almost seems like you're walking in place, but you're moving forward at the same time too. It wasn't exactly that, but it had that sort of feel to it, right?
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely, no doubt.
yeah, so like there's a lot of confusing things about the trailer. There's things I don't like aesthetically, graphically, it looks good.
Yes,
But like
graphically, Norman Reedus looks wow, man, spot on.
yeah, and not just that, but like the environment detail, that was all awesome. The characters, they're fantastic. I just I just hope that the saying of or when that one CEO or whoever it was that tried out playing Death Stranding and saying, yeah, it takes 4 to 5 hours into the game to have it finally make sense to you. I
Yeah, I
don't
can
want
tell you
that.
right now, just based on what you told me off air about Metal Gear Solid 5 getting out of that hospital, and you were like, okay, controller's down. You're never going to get past the first 20 minutes of this game.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's and I don't think anybody would. Don't. I almost think it's insulting to tell a gamer who's going to spend their money on your game, well, you won't get it for at least 4 to 5 hours. Well, that's not respecting the player's time. And even though I respect him as a director, there comes a point where what's the story you have that you're trying to tell has to be right from the get. You have to grab the player from the beginning. You have to
Yeah,
make that player want to come back.
you have to at least keep them consistently interested in the story in order to drag them along, in order to find that, as you could say, like a homing point for them to grab interest into the story. Um, I don't really see that happening with the Stranding, and I could definitely see that being a major issue when it does release. Because personally, I want to play the game right now. I want to play the game from start to finish. But like I said already, I'm really worried that the pacing in the story and what was shown might not actually end up happening, or that there might be, or that the pacing might actually end up happening the way it's been shown. And
Yeah,
yeah,
well, listen, I mean, if you were to put a percentage on exactly how much of this game do you think is done, what would you give it?
like 30%.
Yeah, I was actually going to say less than that. I would say maybe 20,
Yeah.
because remember he's been working on a new engine, and that's never easy. So obviously, and his games notoriously take sometimes double of what a regular studio would do. Instead of your 3-year development schedule, he
Mhm.
takes 6. So do we see this for a launch for PS5? I don't even know if we see it launch in 2020.
It
I'm
won't
thinking
be a,
maybe.
it's not going to be a PS5 launch title. There's no way.
Okay.
It's just like you said, I don't see it being a PS5 launch title. If it is, I don't think it's going to be a complete product.
Right. Not
It
not
is
a,
going to
not
take
a,
its
not a
time.
current standing. Not,
Yeah, yeah. I don't see it coming anytime soon. I definitely see it later on in the future. Um, that kind of goes back to our like the points of what we talked about earlier, though, is they really should have put a time window, a year time window,
yeah.
whatever you want to say, or however you want to call it. They should have displayed that on these games to say, hey, we're aiming for this year so then people can know when it's coming. Because at this point, as much as some of these games look complete and finished and how good they're looking, we still don't know exactly when they're coming out. So as far as we can tell, or what we can speculate, hey, maybe they'll come out in December, all of them at the same time, which is definitely
Right.
not going to happen. But they also might not come out until 2, 3, 4 years down the road. We don't know.
Okay. Well, listen, we're not going to hold out again. We are coming towards the end of the show. We have a couple of more topics I want to hit because the Nintendo one is going to start.
Oh,
I
yeah,
just want to
yeah.
give the fans that I will be doing a Nintendo recap tomorrow morning. Same way I'm doing Sony's. I think they are for me anyway, being a huge Nintendo fan, they're worthy of it. I'm probably not going to get a lot of viewers, but that's okay because I do this for fun. A lot of people are down on Nintendo, and I totally get it. But if you like listening to video games, I'm going to be doing that tomorrow morning. But there are two left, and one, of course, is a big one. One is a shocking one to me, and that, of course, is Nioh 2. I did not see happening.
No, that was surprising.
I thought what we were seeing was some sort of a DLC because here's the thing. We talked off air again about how sucky I am when it comes to Dark Souls. I mean, good friend of the show, Luca, who is a master of Dark Souls, tried to help me along, and I'm just the worst. I'm the biggest noob when it comes to Dark Souls. But here's the thing. I'm a master when it comes to Nioh. I put 90 hours into the first one. 90 hours.
Oh my god.
Okay. And I had sometimes banging my head against a wall with these bosses, but something about that Japanese setting, again, a big Onimusha fan, after the first 2 or 3 hours of getting destroyed by that boss in the bottom of the boat, I said, you know what? I changed my gameplay style. I started playing the game like an Onimusha title, and it started to work. And that's why I enjoyed 90 long hours of that game. It's one of my favorite games from last year. So seeing a Nioh 2, man, I'm there day one. Yeah. What was your take on it?
Yeah, same as you. I'm there day one. What? Like I said, you hurt me, man, because you love Nioh. You put 90 hours into it, but you're
I know, and I'm terrible. I
don't. Oh my god! I only got good at Nioh because I was good at Dark Souls, but even then, that first 2 bosses just kicked my ass over and over again. I was like, okay, I gotta take a step back. This is not your typical Dark Souls gameplay. Oh man, okay, let's try some things a little bit different. And it finally ended up working out for me, and I started progressing. But I am super excited for Nioh 2. Just like you, I thought it was a DLC. I was like, oh, sweet, a DLC. I really need to get down and finish this game because I haven't finished it yet, and I really need to. But I thought it was DLC. And then all of a sudden, Nioh 2. Wait, what? What?
Yes.
Really? Yeah. It did that well, too? You know what? Awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome. I'm happy that happened, and I'm really looking forward to the next iteration of Nioh in the series.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, the first one I thought looked really good, but I think that because they've had so much development time with the PlayStation 4, I think it's really going to take advantage of the Pro. It's going to look amazing. It's going to look like what you would expect of Sony's first party, because even though this is not a first party game, this is a second party game. It's only available on their console, and it's going to have from the trailer. This again, it could look terrible. I don't know, but if I'm a betting kind of a guy, I'm going to say it's going to be your typical big, open, gorgeous-looking, standard PlayStation title. I'm looking forward to it. But we're talking about big. We're going to move on to the last part of the show for Sony, and that, of course, is Spider-Man by Insomniac Games. Holy shit, dude! Let me just say this: I'm a huge Marvel fan, right? I think that Spider-Man's rogue gallery that he has is only matched with Batman's. His bad guy roster is unbelievable. I've been a big fan since it's a long list of everyone that hates Spider-Man, and it seemed like everyone was there ready to destroy him. But listen, we saw a lot of QTEs in the prior events, and there were a lot of people that I know in the industry that were like, I don't know. It's going to be that cinematic thing. It's going to be Telltale. It's going to be push X and kick and just press Y and spray a web. This removed all doubt that this is going to be a rock'em and sock'em kind of a punch the shit out of everybody kind of a game, which is right up my alley. But I'm going to hand it over to you. What was your takeaway from this Spider-Man reveal?
Well, I like the villains that they showed because growing up, I used to watch the classic Spider-Man, or the 80s Spider-Man, old, just bad-looking cartoon show, but it was just pure classic goodness. It was so good. But I I've never actually been a huge fan of Spider-Man video games. I've played them once in a while. I thought they're pretty decent. This one I've been skeptical on because, like I just said, I've never been a huge Spider-Man fan, even though I watched it as a kid. Growing up, I never had actually like a superhero that I looked up to until recently when Deadpool came to light in my
Yes.
life, and I follow the Deadpool religion, and he will always be the best superhero out there. No lies, just saying. But I like the way this game's going. I like the way the game looks, the way it plays. It's not Q2E fields. Like, you might encounter it once in a while, maybe in a boss fight or something like that, but it's going to be very short. It's going to be like how executions work in God of War, probably. That might be the furthest extent of what you might see for QTE in the game itself. Other than that, you're just going to have to deal with the awesome open world Spider-Man web slinging superhero fun that you're going to end up having in that game, because it's like you said, it's just a rock 'em, sock 'em, beat up the bad guys, true to heart Spider-Man experience that gamers have been asking for many years now, too.
Yes, absolutely. This actually could reinvent the wheel the same way Batman from Rocksteady did.
Yes.
And I really think that that's where they're going. But I mean, plus, look, it's Insomniac Games. I
I
mean,
was just
come
going to say
on.
that. Like, the way they made Sunset Overdrive, the fluidity of the movement in that game, I find really helped them create the perfect traversal system for Spider-Man in Spider-Man video games. I don't think you could have asked a better studio to do a game like that.
Oh yeah, I absolutely agree. I mean, again, they have such a ginormous pedigree when it comes to making incredible games,
Mm-hmm.
and the way that they expand on a license. Here's a perfect example, and I heard this from behind closed doors that when Sony approached them, they were basically giving carte blanche. They asked them, "What do you want to make?" That's what they were asked.
Mm-hmm.
What does your studio want to make? We want to work with you. What do you want to make? We want to make a Spider-Man game. Okay, let's do that. They showed them what they did. They gave them the pitch, and the rest is history.
Yep, and look what's happening.
Now, I've been saying this for a while. It would not surprise me. And again, knowing Insomniac's history, they've been approached by several big time people to be bought out, and they refuse. They want to stay independent. But I can guarantee you this: Spider-Man is going to sell big. I'm telling you, this makes me sad as a Sunset Overdrive fan, hoping that we're going to get a two,
You think they might
because
acquire
they're
them,
going to
right?
start. I would not be surprised if they're already in some sort of pre-production for Spider-Man 2 for to be obviously a PlayStation 4 exclusive. It would not surprise me in the least.
I wouldn't be surprised either. And just kind of like how I just brought up too was like I didn't, and I know how you said they like to be independent from big corporations, stuff like that. But maybe if it sells well enough, maybe Sony might end up pulling a Microsoft move and like, hey,
And buying them out, saying, "Listen, here's this big lump of money. It's three times what you're worth, and you want to work for us."
Here's the big issue I see with that happening, though. I know there's been a lot of great games coming out from Sony's aspect, and they all look great. And we all know, whether we like it or not, that they're going to sell well, and they're system sellers. And Microsoft needs to do the same thing. But I don't see Sony really kind of allowing their studios to have as much creative freedom, or there as much freedom in what they can do, as much as what Microsoft now seems to be doing with their studios. Because there's always been controversy in the past where Sony has been very strict about certain things and certain guidelines, and that, no, we need you to do it by this date, set target like this. No, we need you guys to hurry up on this sort of thing. Now, with as a counter perspective, the acquisition of Ninja Theory. Let's just talk about this just for a short little bit. Yeah. Their little video that they put out, their quick 5-minute video explaining their demands, what they wanted from Microsoft, why they're joining them as well. But what really stood out to me was what they wanted for them as a studio. which is basically what I'm sure any studio dreams of ever having.
Yep.
Complete and utter freedom. And not just that, but now they don't have the fear of failure of a game. If a game goes bad or doesn't do as well as they thought it was going to do, they're okay.
Right.
They're not going to have to worry about failure. Microsoft allowed them to do whatever they want. Anything they want. They can do anything. And at full capacity now, too. Not just that, but with the resources, the technology, and the research, and the funding behind of what Microsoft has now, which, let's be honest, is a much heftier wallet than what Sony has.
Yes.
But not just that, but it also seems like that wallet went from a to be a little sliver in comparison to Sony last year to now being like double the size, because they just acquired 5 studios, and now they're saying, hey, whenever an opportunity comes up, maybe we'll snatch up another one. Who knows? They're always keeping their mind open. That wallet, that checkbook is ready to go.
Well, thankfully, the human roadblock, known from Microsoft, is gone. So now that Phil's sitting in the big boy seat, we're gonna see big progress from Microsoft. But we're gonna finish up the show. First and foremost, I want to thank everybody in the chat. We had as many as 50 plus people watching. That is a big deal for me. That means that obviously people do like what I have to say, and it is greatly appreciated. Of course, I have to immediately thank Rage Virus X for taking the time and answering the call to get somebody in, because the way I wanted to make my content is I like the idea of rotating chairs, because I like different gamers' perspectives. And I have gotten some of the most finest guests. You are right along on that list, Rage. Thank you again.
Oh, thanks, man.
It's really greatly appreciated. But I want to finish off the show before we do the outros of a grade. And because you're the guest, I'm going to let you go first. What would you grade Sony's cringeworthy flute playing, banjo playing, great looking games conference?
I graded at a C.
Okay, all right, that's fair. I mean, is there a reason why you're giving it a C?
Kind of like on a few topics that we touched on earlier today, was the pacing was bad. The way they started it out wasn't very good. The live music was okay, cool, but they probably could have done something a little bit more interesting and a little bit more attention grabbing than just 2 people opening up. How do you have a white guy playing an Asian flute for Ghost of Tsushima? That's
I agree. I mean, I think that there are plenty of people that are that study culture for a living. They could have flown in from Japan or from China and said, okay, listen, wherever this is set, it's feudal Japan, so you get an artist from Japan to come in and play the flute. I agree.
The only
it seemed kind of like thrown together, to be honest.
The only saving grace for me during that whole conference was seeing the little bit of gameplay from Last of Us 2 and Ghost of Tsushima. Other than that, I just wasn't overly impressed with it.
Okay, well that's very fair. I was asked last night by Dealer Gaming. He had a bit of a poll, and I kind of rushed to judgment and gave it a B+ because I was excited because of the Resident Evil reveal and Ghost of Tsushima. But I'm gonna scale that just a little bit back. I'm gonna say that, in my opinion, this is just my opinion, folks, I would give them a B, because I do. There are a lot of takeaways from the conference. There were a tremendous amount of cringeworthy moments that we've all, we discussed the last hour. But there were also a lot of really nice surprises. The Resident Evil 2, the Nioh 2, getting extensive gameplay footage of Ghost of Tsushima, getting that extended, brutal demo of The Last of Us 2. I really liked what they had to show us in their first party. Again, outside of the few, crummy parts that kind of really slowed the show down, I was really happy with the games that they showed. It was only 60 minutes. That's typical standard fare for the last couple of conferences. So I'm going to settle in on a B. Once again, I want to thank everybody that took the time to come and hang out. I am going to ask this. I probably should have said it in the beginning of the show because there's only a few, people watching now, but please do me a favor. hit the like button, share this video on social media. A lot of the times YouTube doesn't send out the links and doesn't send out the alerts, and people don't even know I put out content because it's YouTube. And being a small channel that's trying to grow, every little thumbs up helps. Every positive comment helps. And every time you push this video forward at someone that might like my content, that really does help the channel grow. Again, thank you, Ray Jess, for coming to hang out with me. It was greatly appreciated. You rocked it today. And we will definitely have you back on the show.
Love to. Would love to be.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, again, folks, have a great day. Enjoy the rest of E3, and let's watch the Nintendo conference.